Happy Halloween, you beautiful people. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I know Marcus and I are, and we're fixing to guide you through the market. How are you today, Mark?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful, man. I'm glad you're feeling better, buddy.
Yeah. Uh, it's what for going to a night at New York City and seeing Pitbull will do to me um, these days. Just think it's pretty interesting. There's this dude Matt Tuttle who I did a lot of work for this guy and he never paid me, so
Nice.
I have a right to you know.
Bash him a little bit.
So anyway, he used to run a pretty big firm, and for somehow I ended up on his email list, and I'm just looking through his stuff, and all right, so here's his VTF model portfolio. Yeah, that's right where I used to sit right at that desk right there.
Wow.
But what I it, I yeah, he works from his home. That's his home address. What I just there's just something on here I don't get, which I will point out to you. Now these charts here, right? These are by stock charts. See stockcharts.com. These are
Uh
like
huh.
the worst. These are like the worst charts that there are. But you can get a lot of them for free. But TradingView, which I use, is only $60 a month.
Yeah, I
Um,
love trading you, man.
so I'm just curious as to why this dude would be putting out these just such low quality charts. You see, one of the things that I really hate about this is you see these charts only go to the end here. You can't like get the space in between. It would be
Right.
like this going to there.
Right.
And I think that that's such a I don't know, such a just not a good way to do it. But anyway, I'm I know this is a little off subject, but I just got this morning, and I was just kind of curious about it because I haven't seen his stuff before. All right, let's see what he says here. Um, Silver and gold miners still look like they want to consolidate. Okay, I would agree with that. They didn't get crushed in a risk move, so that was good. All right, so TLT is buyable if it moves above its 10-day. It seems like a pretty tight stop to me, but let's look at TLT. Although I do think that interest rates may be about to come down, which means, and this dude he's a really smart guy. I mean, don't get me wrong, but the guy who was his operations guy was a real dick. And I don't know, man. It's a long story, but I'll tell you some other time. Um,
Thank you. We don't want to do it on. We don't do it. We don't want to do it live.
hey, man, it's not.
That's right. It's
If it's
media.
true, it's not slander.
That's right.
All right, so he's got the 10-day moving average in there. Let me look at that. I We don't really use moving average as much, but that doesn't mean they're not effective. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Maybe I'll do a lesson on moving averages.
And that's part of it too, guys. Your questions are kind of how Mark feeds off of you to kind of give you what he knows. So, I know that the only question that's a dumb question is the question that's not asked.
Um, let's see. Just want to make this a little bit easier. So he's saying that if we go above the 10-day moving average, it's time to buy. I could see that. Makes sense, right? So a moving average is just a simple moving average, the 10-day simple moving average. This is just the average closing price of the last 10 days. So if you think about it logically, if the current closing price is higher than what the average closing price has been over the last 10 days, there's a good chance it's starting to move higher. So he's saying buy this on a crossover here. And I don't really look at the bonds. Well, actually, that's not true. I do. But my real focus for the interest rate uh, situation or scenario or whatever you want to call it is this here. And this 484 level is pretty clear. I mean, we've been looking at this. So, I mean, it'll be relatively obvious which way this is going to go when it's going to go one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. It's really like we're really in uncharted territory. So if I try to think back on my experience, it's like, you know, I can't think of anything like this because, first of all, in the last 40 years, this is the first time that there's really been inflation. And I've only been doing this for like 30 years. So inflation had been gone for 10 years by the time I actually, got my first real job.
Right.
And then you got the deficit. There's 33.3. It's like the deficit, like it seems like a month ago people were saying, oh, the deficit's 32 trillion. Now it's like it's 33 trillion. Then of course you got Ukraine and you got Israel. So these are pretty unprecedented times, but this is why I think a lot of ways we got to kind of shut out all the noise and just let the markets kind of tell us what to do, because the markets are always going to be right. The markets, like they say, the markets know everything. So if we start to see interest rates break, that tells us that perhaps that yields are starting to move lower, but we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm punting, because I'm not, but no one really knows what the hell to do, to be honest with you. So that's why you really got to just stick to your rules. It's not about being right. It's not about predicting the way the market's going to go, because even the greatest people in the world at that are wrong sometimes. See, now here's our inflation, and we can see the longer term trend went higher. So this is where we peaked last year after the Ukraine war broke out. And then you can see we were kind of, even though we were very volatile, it looks like we've kind of made this turn here. All right, so we're right up against the trend line. Now, a lot of this is going to have to do with oil, because pretty much everything follows oil. That's why it's so important.
You get a question from Avi when you get done, market oil.
Using lead trend lines are effective. Yeah, I think moving averages are good for they're good for trading systems, right? Moving average and a trend line are very different things, but they're different ways of showing the same thing, and they're used to show. Let me find a stock that we've never looked at before, or at least something that I don't have trend lines on. You know what? I know what I can do. I can just put up the SPY. All right. Sorry, SPX. So today's my daughter's birthday.
Oh, sweet. Both of them. That's right. They're twinsies. So what are you getting them, Mark?
Well, how about $100 and a freaking $400 ticket to Pitbull?
That's a good birthday present. You don't have to give them nothing else.
I think that's enough.
Yeah, you're good.
Enough for me, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, when I was a kid, I'd be lucky if I got $20.
Yeah, shit, I didn't get birthday presents most of the time.
All right, so let's see. Simple moving average. So Brandy suggests 921. All right, so that's 9. And we're going to make that, and then we're going to make this red. So it's so this is going to be the 21. And different moving averages will be more or less effective on different securities. Just as we know, every security's got its own kind of personality, or whatever you want to call it. So now this is a moving average trading system, right? It's essentially buy when the shorter term moves over the longer term, because think about it. We're looking at the average price of the last X many closing days. If the average price of, say, the last, just say 5 days is higher than the average closing price of the last, say, 20 days, well, then there's a good chance the market is moving higher. And if the average price of the last 5 days is lower than the average price of the last 20 days, well, then there's a good chance that the market is moving lower. So the idea is you buy when the shorter term crosses, because that tells us the price is may have reversed, and you sell when the shorter term crosses below the longer term. Now, these things are good because they grab these long trends. That's, I would say, is what their strength is. Well, the two strengths are, one is they grab the longer term trends, or they catch longer term trends, and two is they take the emotion out of it. If you're trading a moving average system, it's just like, all right, you have a very clear signal. There's no subjectivity. Now, the bad thing about them is when you get into these sideways ranges like this, they tend not to work. You get a lot of what we call whipsaw. So they're good for longer term trends, but when markets tend to go sideways, like you can see right here, so we went sideways for like a month here, and So you got like whipsawed on that signal. Um, actually, actually that wouldn't have been that bad. But this, yes, yeah, all right. So here's like a good example of a sideways market where you would have gotten whipsawed. So that's the thing about moving averages, and like every technical thing we look at, they can be fractal. So I can go to the 1 day chart, and now instead of looking at the 9 and 21 day moving averages, we're looking at the 9 and 21 minute moving averages. And you can see here how we catch the trends. I mean, this is only a 45-minute trend, and we're looking at his minutes here, but for a day trader, this would be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You see here, well, yeah, here you would have probably lost a little bit of money. But every trading system, you're going to lose some. So you see here, like this is a good example, the sideways market. All right. Now I'm going to just go back to the year. And of course, different moving averages. There's a lot of money that's put into people like optimizing. I'm sure you could probably get it on some relatively, relatively basic software. Just, what's the best moving average pair to use for this particular security here? And I'm sure there are ways you could probably figure it out. You could probably even do that on TradingView, which I'm not going to look at because I don't want to spend time, because it would take me like 3 years to figure it out. But you could probably put down in here, like, they got all this stuff down here. Like, I don't know how to do all this stuff, but like you can use moving average. Actually, I think if you come up to here, you can use, I think they got a moving average crossover then. Oh, actually, it's going to be under strategies.
Yeah.
So you see right here, so moving average crossovers. And then you could probably have it optimized for you which ones, like whatever one is here is pretty good. Look at this. Of course, it's 1,400 trades. So I don't know. I'm not going to spend time looking through that. Oh, yeah. So look, it shows right up on your chart here where it would be your buys and your sells. And I guess you could optimize it. But here's the thing. It might sound like, oh, gee, this sounds like a great way to make money. Well, guess what? You could have the system tell you what to do, but you still got to do it. It's like that's the psychology, because you could have this moving average thing and you could be doing really well, and you could be like, oh, I'm up. And believe me, I'm not making this up. I've seen this happen before. I'm doing really good. I'm up, whatever, $5,000 or 80% or however you want to, define your success. And then all of a sudden you get a moving average system that's there, and you're like, well, you know what? And it would make you trade for a loss. It's like, I don't want to take a loss. I mean, I've been doing so good. There's bound to turn around. And then you start to lose money. And it's like, well, wait a second. Maybe I'll just add a little bit more to my strategy. Maybe I'll add to the position. And then it keeps going lower. And now all of a sudden your head gets completely messed up, and you try to revenge trade your way out of it, and you end up with a loss. So that's that's the psychology. Just because you've created a model or a system that gives you signals, it's like you got to stick to the signals for it to actually work.
Yep.
So now a trend line is not mathematical. Trend lines are subjective, and markets are either always going up or down or sideways, right? That's all they can possibly do. And if something is going up, what's the first thing it has to do before it starts to go down? Well, it needs to stop going up. So just the way a chart is constructed, you can see these days here. Like, pretend this was the old days and you recorded your charts with hand after the close. You would come in, you would sit down, and it's like, okay, here's Friday the 6th. And this was our opening. This was our close. Here's Monday the 9th, so forth and so on. Now, all of a sudden, if the price stops going higher and it starts to go sideways, you would record your next price in here. Look what's happened. It's crossed the trend line. Yep. So this isn't a like a mathematical signal. It's just like a graphical illustration that tells you, hey, the price has stopped going higher. So it's like a wake-up call. Oh, hey, it stopped going higher. Things that go up, that stop going up, might start to go down. Now you got the opposite. So we're trending lower, and I drew in this trend line. And if today we go sideways, and then maybe tomorrow we go sideways, well, this trend line is going to be broken, and that'll tell us that there's a good sign that the downtrend that started up here has come to an end. And like everything that's in charting, we can see trend lines or trends on short-term charts. So it takes a little, it takes some practice to learn. But after a while, you won't even really need these trend lines. You'll just be able to see with your naked eye when the trend is changing. If you just understand what a trend line is, like I see a lot of people say, like, how many times does a trend line need to be touched for it to be valid? I don't think you should really pay attention to that. It's just a graphical way to help you see that what was going up is not going up anymore, or what was going down is not going down anymore. All righty, so
guys, look in your email boxes. You should be getting some emails today. If you have registered at the Stock Market Jobber, you will get an email today letting you know that we will have the link going out tomorrow, and then inviting you to check out the site.
yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. And you guys being our first 10 or 20 students, we want your input or your feedback.
Yeah, I don't have the forms built yet, but I'm going to build up some survey forms, and I'd like you guys to give me your information, like what you like to trade, how you like to trade it, what you're interested in learning, not how you want to learn it, but what you're interested in learning and how we can help you. And that's really what we want to do, is we want to make every one of you as prolific a trader as you possibly could even imagine you could be. Transformation is what you're going to get at the Stock Market Jobber.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Abby, Heather. Who else did I see up there?
We got Brandy here. We got Maddie. We got Di. We got Abby. Steve.
Is Alba here?
50's here.
Alba, hello. The print is just so freaking small. I like trading credit spreads. All right, cool. We got some options traders.
Nice. I love options. That's really all I do anymore. That and trade gas and natural gas.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to trade options because, well, first of all, you could just make a lot of money, but
I'll get it fixed, Di. That's on my side. I'm working on everything, so it's probably me. But let me get everything together, and then I'll put a link in the chat tomorrow. But I believe I have your email in there. I think I've seen it.
All right, cool. All right, so let's go through the market. Actually, let's just take a look and see what headline news is, if there's anything that's actual news or if it's just, whatever. All right, so Israel intensifies ground war. I find it hard to believe that, markets are not down and oil's not up, but this is why we, can't get too caught up in the news, because it'll just drive you crazy thinking about it. I mean,
I know, right?
No one really knows. I don't care who says what, Like I saw some guy saying yesterday, like, well, the market's up because like we know what's going on over there. There's like no uncertainty at this point anymore. And maybe he's right and maybe he's wrong, but I don't think anyone really knows. So that's why a lot of times it makes sense to kind of just focus out of the news. I think one of the biggest mistakes, and the more I do this, oh, look at that. I've done that one time. although I was so mad, I had a 4-wood and I just I hit it in the woods and I just smashed the club and it broke. It's in my garage, actually. It's the only club I've ever broken.
Golf course etiquette, man.
But I think one of the biggest problems or issues that newer traders have is they think that every single little teeny tiny move in the market has to do with some like news story that's going on, or whatever they're saying about, whatever. I mean, you could put on Bloomberg Business News or Fox Business News or CNBC, and a lot of it is regurgitating of the same stuff. And maybe sometimes the news does move the market, especially things with interest rates. If you're talking about the broad market, because interest rates affect profitability. So there's like a 1-to-1 correlation there. But if you get into this mindset of, why is the stock down even though the earnings beat estimates, or why is natural gas up 0.5%? Oh, it's because whatever, the IEA just came out and said this or that. Like, that's just not how it works in the institutional world. I mean, we don't really just sit around and read the headlines. It's like people spend a lot of time coming up with their strategies, and they kind of really stick to them. And there's really not that much that's going to change that. I remember very, very few times, if any, where there was like some news story and someone came over and said, hey, you guys should start buying this, or you guys should start selling that, unless it was earnings related. Maybe a company came in with really good earnings and the stock was up, and the portfolio manager liked it and wanted to buy some. Or maybe the stock missed earnings and was down, and the portfolio manager was like, you know what, this is just a short-term anomaly. It was just a 1-quarter thing. So let's go out there and buy. So things like that, but that's like earnings. It's not like, oh, hey, Israel just invaded Gaza Strip. Let's go out there and sell everything in our portfolio. It just doesn't work like that. I mean, maybe there are retail traders that sit around and read the tape and trade like that, but I haven't met anyone in the institutional world that does that. So anyway, so here we have our little bit of reversal, and not surprisingly, we stalled out at this 416 price level, which we talked about yesterday, right? So this was resistance back here. So for whatever reason, this particular market, kind of likes this 416 level. So 416.92. If we start to clear 416, clearly we'll probably get some more upside. And this could coincide with the fact that the bond yields are kind of trending lower a little bit now.
Mark, did you see the psychological warfare going on over there with the IDF is now growing Inglorious Bastards mustaches? And you know that Hamas has seen that movie. I'd be shitting myself to death if I was sitting in one of those tunnels. Those dudes were brutal in that movie.
Yeah, well, that's how war is, man. It's like,
you know what? Sometimes you reap what you sow.
As Americans, we think, yeah, you see this? Look how the bond yields are kind of breaking down here.
Mm-hmm.
We act like, Americans are all goody two-shoes, but our soldiers, I mean, I remember my grandfather was an MP in Europe, and he said that, when they rounded up those Nazis, they were so fanatical. It's like there wasn't nothing you could do with them. Because they were fanatical and they were high in crystal meth. So they would just put them at the firing squad and shoot them. It's not like they were, bringing them to rehabilitation, because they were unrehabilitatable.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So it's one of the jobs of the MPs is to.
And they make that same PEP stuff in Syria, and that's what they give to the Hamas fighters. They were even talking about it on the news that they gave it to them before they went into Israel. And there's a big difference in hitting military targets and then what Hamas did by going in and just slaughtering civilians. That is so just lowbrow and disgusting. I mean, it's not even lowbrow. That's not even could even be considered for that. But that's just really evil.
Yeah,
so, good for Israel. Go get them.
Crystal meth was actually legal, and it was very common. I mean, just think about it. Why do people drink coffee, right?
Right.
So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but sometimes I get curious about these things. Yeah, how methamphetamine became a key part of Nazi military strategy. So it was legal in the society, just like as a pet be up, I guess. People didn't realize how addictive it was and that it would make you have hallucinations if you stayed up for 3 days in a row. But anyway, so part of the German soldiers supplies or rations, like look at this, pilot salt. And Hitler was getting meth too.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So these people, they don't, it's easy to sit in your chair there in your nice place and just think like, oh, well, they shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that. And they shouldn't, but I'm just saying you can't project and think that these people think the same way that you do. They're fanatical. They don't think, they don't think like we do. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I think a lot of people in life have projection. And this is one of the things I try to teach my daughters. And it's not just about, wars and whatever, but people tend to think other people are the same way that they are. So if you're a nice person, you tend to think other people are nice people. And that person that you think is nice might realize that and take advantage of you. If you're a bad person, you tend to think other people are bad people. So you don't have any problem with like doing bad things to them because you think they're bad. So yeah. So anyway, all right. Let me get back to the markets here because I just want to. All right. Let's go back and we'll start again. I keep getting distracted. It's probably because I slept for friggin' 20 hours and I actually have a lot of energy. All right, so for S&P here, we got to watch this 416 level. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to go through the sectors and see if we can get some insight. And the big thing we were watching was financials. So let's take a look at financials first today. This was kind of I think the sector that was in the driver's seat. All right, so see we had this big move down. Now we're going to rebound. Now the question is does this rebound hold or does it continue to move ahead? And if it does, I think we can get some upside in the broader market because these guys are probably still in the driver's seat. Looking up a little bit this morning, but more about the 340 level that we got to watch. And we're only, 25 cents away from it. But you see how not 340, 3240. See how it was support here and then it became resistance in here. I'm just going to make this so it's kind of easier to see. So all of these tops here, all these high trades were within a few cents of 32.40. So it looks like we're going to get back above 32. Next stop is 32.40. And if we stall out there, then I think the broader market will stall out. If it looks like that's going to break, then the broader market will probably rally. So I think once again, the key is watching this financial sector. Now, sometimes the different sectors are in control. Sometimes other ones are. And you know what? Before I finish that, let me just take a look at healthcare because healthcare is going to be important to watch here too for a reversal. So just think about that 32.40 level in financials, and then let's go look at the action here in healthcare because you see that we had this huge sell-off, and look at where. I mean, look at this. This stuff is like really kind of amazing. I mean,
It's cool as shit.
Look at where I put in. So this is the 123.80 level.
Yep.
And look at where we traded yesterday. All right. So now this looks, it's only an 80-cent move, but if this starts to get going and this reverses here, and it probably will because it is pretty oversold. Now, I mean, I don't know how much follow we're going to have, but if this starts to reverse and if XLF starts to take out that resistance, then the S&P is probably going to have a meaningful move higher. And when I say meaningful, I don't know, maybe 2-3%. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Probably should be some short-term resistance around 422. But that'll be a tradable move.
UNH is up $5 in the pre-market, and Johnson & Johnson is up 80 cents.
Yeah, I mean, we have been talking about UNH the healthcare sector for potential reversal. I don't think we targeted UNH, but I think we.
Oh wow, I got it at 538. I've got it at 534.
There might be a reversal here. This thermo, if that healthcare sector starts to reverse, this would be probably a good way to play it. Because you see how we got this gap we could refill up in here.
Oh yeah, and that's a big one.
So I would say keep an eye on this if healthcare reverses. All right, so let's look at technology.
You guys are killing me. I got to work on this site today. I'm not going to be able to trade.
All right, so here's tech, and the level to watch here is this 164 level. So it's a little bit of a confusing market to me, but it looks to me like we're going to see a little bit of upside, and then we got this resistance to worry about, and then we got the resistance in the financial sector to worry about. So I don't know if a move in healthcare is big enough to overcome that. Probably not. But I would think we're going to stall out. I mean, if it was me, I would probably be on the sidelines because I'm not seeing stuff that's as clear. Like a week ago, things looked pretty clear.
Yeah.
What was going to happen, and sure enough, it played out pretty much exactly as we thought. But now it's like it's a little unclear, and there are times where it's okay to kind of stay on the sidelines. one of my favorite quotes is by this guy named Jesse Livermore, who was, see, this held, but it's not doing anything. Who was a straight trader back in the 70s, and he said something along the lines of like, I made my money by not by being in the market, by being out of the market. And I think what he meant by that was, you know, he was patient enough to stay on the sidelines and wait for a compelling opportunity to come along. He didn't feel as though like he needed to always be in the market. All right, so let's look at Coinsbase. And we can see here, you know, there's a resistance up there. Where are we this morning? 73. I mean, to me, this looks a little neutral. I don't really see much here, but here's where I would be looking at, just for a little more insight. So, like right down around there, right? We can see that was support here and support here. Now let's look at the ups. And this morning we're trading right there. So let me put a line there so we can see. So 73.60. I'll make that red. So that's where we're trading this morning. And then on the upside, I'd probably be looking like right in there. All right. All right. So downside 70, 60, 70, 70. Let me see here. I'm going to say 70, 70 just to make it. And then upside, you see how this price level here, 77.30, open, close, close, close to the high here, close to the high here, close to the low here. So since the 17th, so like over the last 2 weeks, this particular price level has been important for this particular stock. So right now we're like right in the middle of the range. So from this perspective, I don't really see much. Now let's look at a closer, a closer up, I should say. I'm having a hard time talking here. So here, so this is 77. Hold on one second. I can just confuse myself. All right, so we got there, there, and there. Now I'm going to go to the 5-day. All right, yeah, so you can see that these levels are pretty precise. Like, see that one there, there. And if we can see, like right now, we're basically are going to be like right about there. So we're pretty much trading right on the price level. That was resistance on Friday morning, yesterday morning around 10:10, and then yesterday around 3:20. So we're sitting right on this resistance. So I don't know what your trading strategy is, but I would think that there's probably going to be some kind of a move here that's tradable today if you're a short-term day trader. Just because when we get to these precise levels, we tend not to hang out. Like look at down here, the 70 level. We were there from 105 to 350, and then we blasted off for whatever reason. There are probably people who are watching this who are like,
it's the move in Bitcoin. It's been running for the last few weeks. It's up about a month, I think. It's up over 34,000, or it was.
Well, right here. Oh, I see. All right. So this was the closing trade. So there are people yesterday were probably like, you know, this thing's not going down. I'm going to just jump in and buy it. That's what caused it to gap up a little bit. So yeah. So if Bitcoin starts to run, if we can see here, we got this resistance level that's pretty clear. And if it breaks, there's really not much here. I mean, we could probably make a pretty rapid move right back up to right around here. Right. Where this top, where this line is here. That's what we were looking at there. So just to kind of review, if we go look back at the 1 day. Well, actually, this is more of a 2 day, but You know, we're below. What's going on there? Yeah, so we're testing resistance, but above the resistance, we don't really look. It doesn't really look like there's going to be much resistance until we probably get up to around here. See, I mean, if it breaks this resistance, like a strategy for me would be, all right, if this thing gets to say 425, I'm going to buy it, and my sell target is going to be up around 76.50. Because so what I'm doing is my strategy for my trigger to enter is buying the breakout, which means you clear resistance. Not perfect, of course, could always reverse, but the assumption is that if we got above the resistance, then the traders who created the resistance with their sell orders are out of the market. They've left the market or they've finished their orders regardless. When you take supply out of a market, then the buyers or the demand side are going to be forced to pay premiums in order to attract sellers into the market. And that's going to cause us to potentially have a move higher. In other words, when you're at a resistance level and you're a buyer, you can buy all you want. There's no issue of like, oh, I can't buy the shares I need. You get to a level like this where there might not be a lot of sell orders, and it's like, oh man, I needed to buy 1 million shares. I can only buy 100,000. I got to pay up 50 cents for my next 100,000, and then I got to pay up another 50 cents, and so forth and so on. And the reason why I don't think there is going to be much resistance up in here is because we had this fast move down through it. So one of the reasons why we get resistance is because we get remorseful buyers trying to sell. When you blow through these levels really quickly, then there's not a lot of time for there to be a lot of people buying who are going to want to turn around and sell. So you could have this like lack of supply. Look at right down here is a perfect example. You get the fast move down, and then when the buyers come in, there's really not a lot of sellers around because there's not a lot of people who bought in here who are trying to sell because the market moves so quickly. So when the buyers come in, they're forced to pay premiums to bring sellers in off the sidelines. And that causes our rapid move up. So there's a chance something like that happens up here. All right, let me see Bitcoin. When I first started in the retail world, so to speak, it's like, man, all anyone cared about was cryptocurrencies. Wow, look at that. Yeah, I knew this thing broke out, but let's see what we could find here. It's like all anyone talked about was cryptos. I remember like there was restaurants putting out cryptocurrencies. It was ridiculous.
But you can see where it stopped all the way to the left at that 34,400.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just going to take all this stuff out and just start again. Yeah. Look at that. See?
A snap. Bitcoin might be starting an uptrend.
So right there. So January of 22. We're going to call this. Let's make this 34,540. 34,530. I mean, we just got to have a number there as some kind of like a benchmark. But anyway, yeah. So look, so support there. Now here we are, and we didn't just get there for like an hour. I mean, Bitcoin has run into resistance at this particular level since the 23rd. So since last Monday. Okay. So Bitcoin has been there. And don't forget, this has trading over the weekend on Bitcoin because people, I guess, trade this over the weekend. So that's Saturday and that's Sunday. But if we go back to there, I mean, it's not a coincidence. Like, why didn't this rally? These charts are hard to use. I don't think I'd ever get a Bloomberg, but now, why did this rally not stall out here or here or here? Why did it stall out right here? Well, because it was a support level back here.
We're getting a fact set though, as soon as we can afford it. That's going to put you above what the others can produce, Mark.
Yeah, well, this still can too in a lot of ways.
Right.
But we could see these same things going on with Bitcoin here, right? Look, so what was resistance became support, and support. What was resistance back here became support here. So this market breaks out, and it's like, oh, where should I sell? Say you're a technical trader and you figure, all right, well, looks like Bitcoin's broke this resistance here and here. I'm going to buy it. So it broke the resistance. I'm going to buy it at 32.1 or 32,100. Where would I sell it? Oh, look at that. That's a pretty clear bottom back there. You got this rapid move lower and then a rapid move higher. Look at that. So for whatever reason, there's a lot of buyers, a lot of aggressive buying coming off this level. And these people have held on, a lot of them, and they've just been waiting and waiting and waiting to get out of break even. And now they finally can, and they're doing so. So this is why this has stalled out. Now, which way does it look like it's going to go to me? I mean, we do see a little bit of an ascending type pattern in here where the lows are getting higher. So the sellers are hanging out and they're content to be patient up around here. Whereas the buyers are, and it's not a huge pattern, but the buyers are seemingly subtly getting more and more anxious and are willing to pay up. So this could break out here too to the upside if interest rates start to fall now. And I thought interest rates were going to go up, and maybe they will longer term. But again, I know that the market is smarter than me. See, now look at that.
Sorry, man. I usually have it on silent.
So now the retest. So I'm going to turn this chart upside down because people don't trade interest rates. People trade bonds, and these are interest rates. That's kind of important to remember. Like when the Fed talks about the rates that they manipulate, notice I say manipulate, they are looking at the Fed funds rate. That's the interest rate that banks lend money to other banks overnight. There's this huge short-term borrowing market because companies, including banks, and a bank I don't think can lend to itself, they need money for their day-to-day expenses. So they have to borrow that in these short-term rates. So the rate that banks borrow from each other overnight is the federal funds rate. And that's the rate that the government, like Powell and Janet Yellen, when you hear them talk about it, that's what they're talking about. This is the rate of the 10-year bonds, and this is based on the trading. This is the yield, and this is based on the trading of the bond. So it might be a little bit easier to kind of look at it this way, all right? So found a little bottom, and look at that. There's our little bit of our, same thing we kind of just saw in Bitcoin, the teeny tiny ascending pattern. Now, are we going to break out, or are we going to reverse and come back in? And if we reverse and come back in, that's going to be bearish for the markets. But if this holds over the next few days and starts to move higher, then remember, this is the bonds. I don't want to get you confused. If this moves higher, it means that interest rates are moving lower, and that will be good for the market. Yeah, gosh, everyone talked about cryptos, and I think this, it's all still. I think a lot more of this is going to break in the sense of the scandals, the crimes. We've got this scam bankman fraud still out there. We read that article yesterday about how the biggest
that other guy disappeared.
Like one of the biggest crypto guys in China disappeared. That's hey, anyone watching the World Series? I haven't watched it.
Man, I didn't see any of it.
I really don't follow baseball, but I do like watching the World Series. It could be.
I love baseball, but I don't I don't watch it enough. I like watching it in the stadium. That's one of those things that you kind of like to. I like to be there to watch baseball.
When I worked for Gabelli, he had season tickets,
Oh my
And
God, a
there was
Yankee
actually a
game.
time where he was going to buy the Yankees. He was considering buying them. But
Oh,
anyway, he was, he was never around because he was always traveling. So he would always send out all his extra tickets to the trading desk. So there was like one year there, I went to the Yankees probably like 40 times.
sweet. During work.
Well, after work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he had his seats were right behind the dugout, the Yankees dugout. So it was pretty cool.
Man, sweet.
Yeah,
I
but
saw
I don't know.
actually. I was actually there the day that El Duque pitched. The first time he came over from Cuba. That was my first time being at Yankee Stadium. That was in the '90s. You remember that guy?
Of course. Remember the little bit of a side. Remember the Simpsons where Homer quits drinking for 30 days and
Yeah.
he goes to a baseball game. Everyone around him slamming beer, and he's like looking around, and you can hear him thinking like, "I never realized how boring this game really was." So, all right, let's just check up on Market Watch before I get going. We'll be back tomorrow. And let's see. Charlie Munger says there's not much low hanging fruit. Blah blah blah. What's her face there? Taylor Swift. Man, she's in everything.
Dude, she's the market. My God. You know, these EVs we're eventually going to have a reckoning on these EVs because we don't have the grid to power them, and they're pushing them and selling them. So I don't really know how this is all going to play out. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but the sales have been really bad. So I
Right.
think I think other than Tesla, I think like every other company is. I mean, we'd have to do a little bit more research in it, but yeah, I mean, I think that like I know for a fact Ford EV sales aren't going well, and I don't know if it's a price thing or if it's the
Well,
market has been
one of my dear
people that
buddies.
wanted to buy their EVs have already just bought them and that's it. I mean,
One of,
around here, I think I've seen I mean, this is obviously just anecdotal, but I've seen a Rivian once, and I see Teslas fairly often.
Yeah, I see them. I see Rivians too. But a friend of mine has an electric company up in New Jersey. And if any of you guys are in North New Jersey, it's Farley Electric. It's a little free prop for you, Scott. Scott was telling me that it's 75 watts. Is it 75 watts? Yeah, 75 watts to put one of these chargers in your home. So every time you go home at night and everybody plugs in 75 watts into their car to charge them for the day, it's going to black out everything because you can't produce that much electricity at the same time. They can't do it during the daytime. How are they going to do it at night?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, speaking of Tesla, look at this. It looks like we've been watching this for a potential breakdown, and it looks like it finally has happened. So there could be some more downside here. I mean, this to me looks like it's going down to about 165. I mean, that's $30.
Yeah.
So I would be on the short side of this, definitely. And I guess I'll just look at Amazon because it's in the same sector. Amazon, and look at that. Amazon's going one way, Tesla's going the other way. But this Tesla looks pretty weak to me, right? This is
Yeah.
a pretty important price level here. This one, so let's call it just 212. Goes back to May of 22, February of 23 so was support, turned into resistance, turned back into support, and now the support looks to be broken. So what is support? Support is a large group of traders or investors who want to buy. And when the support breaks, meaning the price trades below it, it tells us that those investors who wanted to buy, they either finish their orders or they cancel their orders. But regardless, they're out of the way. So, all right. Well, if no one has any more questions, I'm going to hit the road because we got some planning to do for tomorrow. But we'll be back tomorrow morning. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you so much.
Alba, you know things can stay oversold for a very long time. So just watch it if you're going to trade it. Okay. Listen.
Yeah, if it starts to reverse, if it starts to reverse, let me take a look at this here. It doesn't need to get to support to reverse, obviously. Ooh. But like a potential way you could trade this is you can bring up, this is just a potential, I don't like to give exact precise recommendations because I don't want to sound
Nothing's
like I'm
precise.
copping out, but it is important to remember that trading is really more about the psychology than it's about getting every trade exactly right. But I will tell you what I would be looking at. Or they change these things here.
I like this little green and red that they put in there though on the RSI when it gets above the range.
Yeah. Yeah, I could probably. Well, let's see. I just want to focus on this one down here. So this is the lower RSI band, right? Now, a potential way to trade this, if you're trading a reversal, is and Berlin is right. Things that are oversold can stay oversold for a long time. But a potential entry signal here could be, all right, the RSI gets back above this horizontal red band. So that's where you get in. So look here, like you would have bought right here. That would have been like the
Nice
low
trade.
trade there.
Yep.
You would have bought right here. So that would have been a good place. You would have bought right there. And so you would have got a little bit whipsawed back there. But remember, no trading system is perfect. So if we get back above the red, that's where you could think about getting in. Then you have to think about where you're going to get out. What's your target going to be? I mean, if this happens over the next few days, my target would be right back up here around 210. But I'd have to wait to see shorter term what price levels are kind of developing.
Nice.
Where can we watch the rerun of today? Do we have reruns?
Yeah, so it's usually posted to the live button on YouTube afterwards. Usually comes up within about an hour. And then it's also on the Facebook group, Mark Putrino's Trading School. And it's also on Stock Jobber OG on Twitter or X. You can find it there as well. And it's always in the I guess the wall or timeline of the Stock Jobber OG. All of them show up there. So you should be able to find them, even the back ones.
I think they're on my LinkedIn page too.
Well, I didn't send to LinkedIn today. They were having a problem with our disclaimer. So we're only on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube today. LinkedIn's got a certain amount of characters that will allow you to have, and our disclaimer is like 20 characters too long now. So I've got to rewrite it and then get it to where it'll fit so we can be on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. All right, everyone. We will see you all tomorrow.
Have a lovely day, guys. Enjoy the market.